Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ask Me Anything for the CrossFit Linchpin private track. It is April 22nd, 2021. As always, we've got some good questions. I've got a glass of water. I've got my answers written down, and let's dive right in. So the first most upvoted question was from Jared. Jared P. Here is what he asked. It's a two-part question. Number one, how are you doing? He's asking me. How are you doing, Coach? It's been a crazy year, especially as you're balancing being a dad, running a business, maintaining health and fitness. Many out there are facing mental health challenges. That was number one. How am I doing? Number two, any things you've learned this last year for keeping it all together? Okay, well, first of all, Jared, thank you for asking. Second of all, thanks to the Linchpin community. Everybody actually upvoted that to be the most upvoted question, so it's wonderful that everybody cares. How am I doing? First of all, can't complain. I mean, let's frame it with that. I've got a roof over my head. I've got food in the refrigerator, and I got people who care. So, winning, right? Nothing to complain about. Of course, everybody could then launch into a whole bunch of things that aren't going right and blah, 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 blah. So, I would say I always like to say things are going exactly as they should. And what I mean by that is, I think life is this beautiful dance of both, it's a symphony of joy and chaos. All of that comes into all of our lives at different times. I don't know anyone whose life is just unfettered joy every minute of every day. And ideally, your life is not chaos every minute of every day. It's usually, ups and downs and highs and lows, strikes and gutter balls of both joy and chaos. And so if that is life, and that's how it's supposed to go, then whether you find yourself in a moment of joy or you find yourself in a period of chaos, that's normal. That's just normal life. So my answer is, how's it going? It's going exactly as it should be. And that is a dance of both joy and chaos. But in a great way. Life is crazy and wonderful. Now, I don't want to derail this. I mean, I guess you did ask, right? My life feels very similar in large part to many other people's lives. My life used to be much simpler, okay? So before I met my wife, for a long time I was single, and so, had a lot of free time, was caught up in all the TV shows and all that stuff, had plenty of time to work and get in my workout because there was really nothing much else on my plate, hang out with some buddies if you want. Then, met Emily, fell in love, moved up here to Washington State. She had two children from a previous marriage, so I'm a stepdad to two absolutely amazing boys who are now 9 and 11. When I first came into their life, they were 3 and 5 years old. And, married, now 2 children, any of that precious free time that I got so accustomed to for so many years just went away, just disappeared. And now, obviously, Emily's pregnant, and we're going to have a baby in late June, early July, so there'll be 3 children. And to say that, and like you said, running a business, try to stay in shape, try to have some sort of semblance of a social life, although that, tends to fade away. Life is crazy, right? Very full, very crazy, but at the same time, and I've said this to other people as well, very wonderful. My life has never been more busy and hectic and crazy and full and demanding as it currently is, But then the other side of that is it's never been as great as it is right now. And I think the two are related, right? Because yeah, when I wasn't a family man, I had more free time, but whoop-de-doo, so now that free time has gone away and it's filled with stuff, but that stuff is the good stuff. That stuff is life and, family and all the highs and lows and demands and benefits that come from that. It's very full, very hectic, but that also is why it's so rewarding. So hopefully that all kind of makes sense. But yeah, each day we're just trying to make it happen, trying my darn best to make it happen on all fronts, and not drop any of the things that you're trying to juggle at once. So, question, part two was any things I've learned this last year for keeping it all together. Whew, man, there's so much there as well. And everything's important, right? This is in no particular order, but things that popped into my mind of things that you try to juggle: food, fitness, sleep, family, friends, free time. So 5 of those begin with an F. It's the 5 F's and an S. Food, fitness, family, friends, free time, sleep. And all of those need to be managed. There's obviously other aspects to life, but food, critical. I mean, what you fuel your body with? Are you going to feel groggy? Are you going to recover well? Do you have good energy? Do you crash or whatever? So pandemic, not a pandemic, hectic life, non-hectic life, managing your food and your diet has been critical, and me keeping a finger on that over the last year, and always, I should say, is critical to mental and physical well-being. Then the second F, fitness. Absolutely have to get the fitness in, whether I have a small amount of time or a big window of time. I'll modify the workout or do it prescribed, do whatever makes sense to make sure I get my fitness in, because I need that just as much for my physical well-being as my mental well-being, as kind of a pressure release and a stress relief each day. Then we've got family and friends, always trying to juggle and balance those commitments and demands. Free time, if you've got it, enjoy it. I think it's necessary to carve out a bit, even no matter how hectic or busy your life is. I think it's important to carve out a little bit of free time. I don't have free time just, falling out of the sky, which I'm sure many people also don't. So I consider it a win, even if it seems like a small win to somebody else, if each day I can read 10 pages. And I try to do that first thing when I get up in the morning. I try to get up before the rest of my family is up. And then that way I know I can get in some me time, if you will. Cup of coffee, nonfiction book, read at least 10 pages. And if I get that in, which is also good for my mind, my body, and my soul, and my intellect as well, I just feel better and have a happier day. So I try to do that every single day. And then if I do get some other free time, then I'll do whatever makes sense. Kids want to bounce on the trampoline. Do I have time to go out there and bounce on the trampoline with them? I'll absolutely go do that. And then I'm not only getting some free time, getting away from the computer, but then I'm also enjoying some family time as well. So, and the other component in that thing I mentioned was sleep. Such a critical deal for you to achieve the goals that you have in the gym, the body composition that you want. If you're not getting enough sleep, and you want to lean out, those two things don't go together. You have to get some good sleep. You want your muscles to recover. You want your mind to recover. Sleep is just a critical component that most of us could need more of. And so to the best of my ability, trying to keep that in my brain and realize it's just as important as everything else. Sure, I've got a bunch of stuff that I want to accomplish, but I can only get up so early, so many days in a row before that bill becomes due, and then I crash and burn. So that's kind of a juggling, and that's a moving target as well, as to what days I can get up at what hour and what days I can't because my body's telling me otherwise. And I'm sure this many, many people listening to this can relate. All those things are a moving target, and you try to balance them to the best of your ability. So I've done all that. Other things I just keep in mind to keep it all together, pandemic or not, is, perfect is the enemy of the good, whether it's fitness or nutrition or whatever it happens to be. It's wonderful to strive for perfection, but realize that most of us will fall short of perfection the overwhelming majority of the time. And so if only perfection makes you happy, then you're probably going to be sad most of your life. So I try to keep that in my head, that perfect is the enemy of the good, and just try to stay as sane, rational, and logical as possible. And then if something is just getting crazy, this advice applies to me and everybody else, you can't be afraid to ask for help, whether it's something work related, something you have going on personally, whatever it is. If you're struggling and you need something, ask for help. Don't try to go it alone. I mean, that's exactly why we do what we do with CrossFit Linchpin, right? Like, there are plenty of training programs out there that'll go ahead and, help your fitness. But on top of that, we're an actual community, like an actual community, not just empty words because it sounds like good marketing to say that we're a community. Like, actually a community where people help each other out and get to know each other, and we lean on the community for support and we help build each other up. So ask for help. If you need it, you ask for help, and that's what the community is for. And all that, if you are actually asking for help and things like that, that's probably because you've done some of that great work on yourself, like gotten your ego in check. So I still try to remember that as well, that if the ego gets in the way, it's going to not help any of the goals that I'm trying to accomplish. That ego is a toxic thing. So get that ego out of there, serve others, ask for help if need be. And like that, we push forward every day. That's it. I imagine that a lot of things in life is just a big ball of whatever, work, tasks, responsibility, this huge boulder that you have in front of you. And you're pushing this boulder forward. Maybe some days it feels like it's uphill, but you're exerting forward pressure against this huge object. And the goal is to push it forward, right? To advance through life. Now, some days you do advance it forward. That's wonderful. The goal is just not to let it roll back over you and kill you. And so even on the days that you don't advance it forward, ideally the next best thing was at least you still are exerting forward pressure, that maybe you didn't move that day, but you didn't go backwards. We all have those kind of a day. So the goal is, no matter what, just keep a gentle forward pressure each day. Gently keep moving ahead to accomplish your goals. Some days you'll push that things forward. Other days might be stagnant. But as long as that sucker doesn't roll backwards, you're winning. You're doing well. So all that stuff kind of rolls around in my head. So Jared, thank you for asking. I hope that somewhat answered your question. All right. Next most upvoted question was from Philip I. Philip says, heard on the Varied Not Random podcast, thank you for listening, we'll circle back to that in a second, that every training session should have a focus, a desired outcome. How can I best determine this? Should it be determined by the programmer, etc., etc.? So first of all, very cool, right? So the Varied Not Random podcast is a podcast hosted by Beyond the Whiteboard, and myself, I'm on it, and then we got Adrian Bosman on there. I'm so stoked to be doing that podcast with Adrian. He is one of the smartest people, I've said this before, one of the smartest people I know in CrossFit in general, training methodologies in general, just the realm of physical fitness. He's a wealth of knowledge, and he is a sharp individual. So to be able to start this podcast with him makes me incredibly happy, and hopefully it serves the entire CrossFit and fitness community as a whole very well. And so we've got 2 episodes that have launched so far of the Varied Not Random podcast, and on one of those, exactly, Boz and I were chatting, and Boz was basically saying just that every session in the gym, it should have a focus, it should have a purpose, it should have a why, and that's utterly and completely true. And, Philip, part of your question was, do you trust the programmer, with that? And ideally, yes. So I mean, if you are not programming for yourself, well then by default, you are trusting the programmer. Whether that programmer knows what they're doing or not is a different discussion. Whether they have a goal or a purpose for each session is a different discussion or not. But they 100% should, without question. And if you are programming for yourself, well, then the responsibility falls on you. To not have a focus or to not have a desired outcome or a specific thing that you're working on would then mean that the programming is goalless, is not focused, and then it would be just random nonsense that you're doing every day. And doing random nonsense every day isn't going to lead to increased work capacity across broad time modal domains, aka fitness. The programming has to be laid out in such a way, ideally by the programmer. You know, this is what I do all the time when I write workouts for Linchpin, is you have to take into account nothing happens just willy-nilly, right? You're not just pulling things randomly out of a hopper and to go, well, this is Tuesday, I guess. We're just going to throw this out there and hope that it sticks and pull out other random stuff you didn't put any thought into and say, well, this is Wednesday. You're not going to find success doing that. You know, you have to lay out, and this would get back to like a programming 101, the goal of each session of each day is all this beautiful interconnected dance of when and how frequently you're going below parallel, and then when you do, is it heavy, moderate, or light? Is it low reps, moderate reps? Is it high reps? Is it unloaded? You know, is it just an air squat or something like that? When are you pulling from the ground? When are you going overhead? When are you pressing in a multitude of other different directions? When are you doing pull-ups compared to ring muscle-ups, compared to bar muscle-ups, compared to strict chin over bar pull-ups, compared to kipping chest to bar pull-ups? When are you doing toes to bar versus knees to elbows versus GHD sit-ups versus hollow rocks versus whatever it happens to be? When are we going to bike versus run versus row? What should those distances be? There's a huge number of variables, from movement selection to time domain to repetition to, I mean, loading, you name it. And if you are going to get a group of people all advancing together as one unit, and you're going to improve their ability with weightlifting movements, you're going to improve their ability with body weight movements, you're going to improve their engine work, their monostructural, their cardiorespiratory endurance, and you're going to do that over a broad range of movements, loadings, time domains in this interconnected fashion that keeps everyone advancing at a nice, gentle, sustainable pace without getting burnt out. That doesn't happen randomly. If it does, you are the luckiest programmer I've ever seen in my entire life. All of those things, to work in some sort of symbiotic fashion, have to have an intense amount of time, attention, and detail placed into them so that it's all choreographed in this beautiful manner. And that, in a grand scheme kind of a deal, is what has to happen when a programming each day, each session, each everything has to have a focus, taking into account how that day relates to that week, how that week related to last week, etc., etc. Or else you're just hoping that things work out and you're just doing random stuff, and that's not what I would encourage anybody to do. So yes, every session, I can't speak for other programmers, but every session that I create has a distinct reason that it exists on paper, and that's why everyone is advancing nicely. So for example, let me call up the Google Doc. Hold on, let's see here. Okay, so what is today? I just said it earlier. Today's April 22nd, so we are right here. Okay, so let's take like last week, for example. So last week on Monday started the 12th. Last week was Monday, April 12th. If you want to go back and look at that. So you can even, now why we programmed last week starting April 12th, you'd have to go look at the week one or two prior to that to see why that week came out, but so we won't go down that rabbit hole. But let's just look at the 5 days that occurred last week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday was a rest day. Friday, Saturday. Sunday was a rest day. So if we're just starting totally fresh, Monday we had interval work. We had GHD sit-ups, sets of 10 push jerks at 60% of your 1 rep max, and then some. Then you ended on the bike. So it was 15 GHDs, 10 push jerks, 20 cals on the bike for men, 15 for women. That's one interval. You would do 5 of those intervals with a 1-2 to a 1-3 work to rest ratio between each one of those. So starting off that very first day, interval work by its very nature, goal, short time domain, high intensity. Also the other goal that day, heavy day at a high heart rate, specifically overhead. There's your focus. 60% of your 1 rep max doesn't sound like a lot of weight until you're doing it for sets of 10. At 10, that becomes a challenge. And at 10, that becomes a challenge when right before you had to pick up that barbell, you did a little session on the GHD. Dose up those quadriceps, dose up that midline, can't quite get your breath. Then that 10 at 60% of your 1 rep max push jerk feels even more different. Barbell hits the ground, you hit the bike, you finish off with a hard sprint. Built-in rest, so overhead strength, taxing the midline quads, finish on the bike, very intentionally not pulling from the ground that day, very intentionally not going below parallel that day. We'd look at Tuesday. On Tuesday we had a classic CrossFit workout, Nasty Girls. Awesome workout, so fun, so cool, so challenging. 3 rounds for time, 50 air squats, 7 ring muscle ups, 10 hang power cleans, 135 or 95 pounds. So we've got a benchmark to go ahead and test in case you want to compare your old data. We had a short time domain, high intensity on Monday. Now we move into more of a moderate time domain on Tuesday. We are going below parallel on Tuesday. We very intentionally did not go below parallel on Monday. And we're going below parallel in a specific way for that day based upon where we've been and where we're going. Unloaded, they're air squats, sets of 50, high volume. That's what we needed that day. We've got barbell work happening this day, okay, so the second day in a row, but it's not going overhead. It went overhead on Monday. We're not going overhead on Tuesday, to give you a little bit of a break right there. And it is a moderate loading, and whereas we had heavy day at a high heart rate on Monday, so a different deal there. We've got a beautiful gymnastics element from pulling from overhead. We did not have a pull from overhead or gymnastics movement like that on Monday, so we've got the variance there as well. We're pressing in a different direction, whereas on Monday we pressed overhead. On Tuesday we're pressing in that gymnastics press out at the top of the dip. So it's kind of a beautiful complement to what we had going on Monday. So the days are complementary, they're intentional, they have a purpose, they weren't just randomly thrown there and hoping for the best. We show back up on Wednesday. Wednesday we had 7 rounds for time of a 200-meter shuttle run, 50 out, 50 back, 50 out, 50 back. So 7 rounds for time, 200-meter shuttle run, 10 devil's press. Pair of 35-pound dumbbells for the men, pair of 25-pound dumbbells for the women. So now, whereas on Monday we had short time domain, interval work, intentional built-in rest. Tuesday, we had moderate time domain. Now on Wednesday, we're having a longer time domain. And we have a nice monostructural component that we haven't had yet. We had the bike on Monday, but now we're running. And we're running a unique distance compared to the 400s that intentionally come up. We've got 200s with a lot of acceleration, deceleration, start, stop, pivoting. That's why I put in 50 meters by 4 instead of just a 200-meter run where you'd go 100 out, 100 back. You finish up with that. The runs are, in all honesty, just a recovery period for you to get back to those dumbbells. Now, men only have 70 pounds total, women 50 pounds total. So all things considered, it's a lighter load, which is a nice, again, complement to what we had on Monday and on Tuesday. And now we are taking both the dumbbells and our body from the ground with the burpee, which we haven't seen the 2 other previous days, in one fluid motion to overhead. Kettlebell swingy, kind of snatchy. We did go overhead on Monday, but it was from the front rack position, shoulder, with a heavy load, whereas on this day, it's from the ground in one fluid motion with a pair of dumbbells. So again, a really nice complement in flow and working the body so that we can work appropriately hard each day and not overtax anything that we worked earlier. Thursday, we go ahead and get ourselves a rest day. Friday, we come back, and Friday, we're going below parallel. So now this is day 3. Last time we went below parallel was Tuesday, so we had Wednesday not to go below parallel, Thursday not to go below parallel. Now Friday we show up, 5x3 back squat. Dedicated, classic, heavy day, nothing overhead, no gymnastics component. The goal is just pure strength below parallel. Fantastic. We show up on Saturday, not a barbell in sight. And now we're doing something we haven't done all week, a single modality monostructural piece in a longer time domain, 5,000 meter row. We haven't seen the rower broken out yet. We're going to get a nice pull in a different direction. We're going to work on our stamina. There's zero loading. Fantastic way to end the week. So each one of those days exists for a unique, special reason. It is all interconnected as to what happened the 1, 2, 3, 4 days previous to the week previous, etc., etc. And each day that occurs, each loading that occurs, each movement that occurs, each way that the body moves, whether it's below parallel, pulling off the ground, going overhead, is all taken into consideration to have this wonderful, beautiful flow so that everybody advances forward happy and healthy. And none of that happens by happenstance, none of that happens by chance, and none of that happens if the way that you program workouts doesn't have a focus and a goal. And so that is kind of what we were talking about when I was doing that podcast with Boz, that your training has to have a goal. When you walk into the gym, there's a reason that you're doing what you're doing. And if you're doing that on your own, or you're doing it because you trust the programmer that you're with, good things will happen and your fitness will advance forward. So, yeah, that was that. And keep tuning in to the Varied Not Random podcast. We've got a cool list of topics that we're going to dive into. Okay. Final most upvoted question was from Chris D. I feel like this was down towards the end. I can't see it now. Hold on. Chris, where are you, sir? Okay, all right, sorry. Here we are. Chris, because of weaknesses that I have recognized in my own fitness and time restrictions, I recently added 10 hollow rocks and push-ups to any warm-up, that does not already have something similar included. It probably means 10 hollow rocks and push-ups per round if it's like a 3 or 4 round workout, because then he says this will accumulate 20 to 40 reps daily. So will the accumulation of 20 to 40 reps daily help with those weaknesses even though they are not done with high intensity? Great question, because first of all of us have things that are weaknesses, deficiencies that we want to work on. Good on you for honestly assessing yourself and identifying some areas that you feel would be beneficial to improve. So the short answer to your question is, what you're doing going to help? Because you say it's some added volume, but it's not a lot of intensity. The short answer is, I believe, yes. Yes, it will. Now, there's, of course, a little bit of a more in-depth answer. So, addressing individual weaknesses, fantastic. You've got several knobs that you can turn in training. And a couple of those knobs are volume and intensity, and usually they go in opposite directions. And so what I mean by that is, if you're going to really turn the intensity volume up super high, almost by its very nature, you're going to turn the volume knob down, and vice versa. If you just add a tremendous amount of volume to what you're doing, reps, you're most likely going to be lowering the intensity, right? I mean, that's in general. So you're getting in some volume each day, and you're not really so much worrying about the intensity. That's fine. Volume is one of the components that will also help drive your fitness forward. And you're not looking to beat yourself up, right? So adding a little bit of volume without so much worrying about the intensity can be a great way to do it. Here's what I would encourage you to try, and this could go for anybody watching or listening that maybe has identified a little area that they want to improve on as well. I think you're on the right track, but I think variance could also be your friend. So what I would ask you was, you said you're doing hollow rocks and push-ups. So now my question becomes, are you doing hollow rocks and push-ups because just those two movements are your specific weaknesses, or are the general movement themes your weaknesses? And what I mean by that is it just hollow rocks, or is it midline strength? Is it just push-ups, or is it pressing capacity? And even if it is just the individual movement, I still think some variance is going to be your friend. But let's say it is, okay, let's take the first one. We'll just stick with the hollow rocks. And let's say somehow we've identified it is literally just the movement. And you said you're going to accumulate maybe 40 reps each day. So if you're only going to do hollow rocks and you're not going to do anything else, I would still, and you want to do about 40 a day, I would still get to that 40 in different ways. So some days in the hollow rocks, 4 sets of 10. Other days in the hollow rocks, 2 sets of 20. Other days in the hollow rocks, 1 set of 40. So even with that same overall volume and just one movement, we still are working in some variance. Oh, I see. Okay, Chris just commented the general movement theme. Okay, great. So that means it's not so much just the hollow rock as potentially the movement theme of midline stabilization. That's actually great because that gives us more options for this wonderful beneficial variance component. So now we can work not just our L-sit, but since we want to work our midline stability, not just the hollow rock, but now we can work in things like the L-sit on some other days. It doesn't always have to be the hollow rock. We're going to throw in knees to elbows. We're going to do side planks. We're going to do candlestick conditioning drills. We're going to get some GHD sit-ups in there. We're going to get some regular sit-ups in there. We're going to get toes to bar, both kipping and strict. We're going to get knees to elbows, both kipping and strict. We're going to get in some windshield wipers. I mean, we're going to do it all. And with each one of those movements, we're also going to vary the rep schemes, as I mentioned a second ago. And now we're going to attack this general movement theme of wanting to improve midline stability in as many different ways of intelligently constructed variance as we can. And it has been my observation and experience that that will help you achieve your goal faster than just by sticking with one or two of those movements and being very static in what you're doing all the time. And that same concept could be taken to, it's not just push-ups, it's pressing strength. Well, now we have so many beautiful different ways that we can press, unilaterally, both arms at the same time, barbell, dumbbells, kettlebells, gymnastics work with handstand, things of that nature, ring dips, I mean, you name it. We have just more tools in the tool chest to attack that particular area of deficiency, and all of that will have this beautiful, the whole structure will be improving at one point in time, and that will help drive your fitness forward and really shore up that weakness quicker than darn near anything. So, yes, that is exactly what I would do. I think you're on the right track. There's nothing wrong with accomplishing that by adding some volume, not so much worrying about the intensity. But again, the biggest thing I would make sure that you throw in there is the variance component. And just track it. You've got the notes section in the Beyond the Whiteboard app. You could track it in there just to make sure that you are heading down the right path and varying those things. And then you can look back to see what you've done, and that will help you know where you need to go. And that kind of relates to, the program discussion we had a second ago with Philip about how what you do each day, it doesn't live in isolation, right? It is one page of a book, and that book that you write, each page is written intentionally because it has a desired outcome to get you to the end state. So, yeah, so that's that. I should have gotten more, but I just got one screenshot that I wanted to share today. I've got a folder of more that uh, I need to bring to the forefront. But this one, when I was going through all the comments on the Facebook page this morning, it just resonated with me because it was just so 100% real and true, just real life, that I figured this would be the one that I read today. So this is a post that occurred today from Levi. It says, real life and linchpin. Got into the garage for the first time this week. Bear in mind it's Thursday. So far this week, I've spent 14 hours or more every day on conference calls. Think about that for a second. 14 hours or more each day on conference calls and in front of my laptop working. I've been woken up every night because of issues at work, or last night my 4-year-old getting sick in bed. Both kids stayed home sick today, and I had another long day on the phone and computer, although we did solve the issue. Thank goodness for all of you here, in the Linchpin community and your posts. I saw today's no equipment option, and it was just what I needed to work out with no dumbbells, no barbells, and just move for 30 minutes. Perfect timing in the programming as usual, and this community is helping keeping me accountable, and I got it done. Another testament to the programming and the community. Thanks for the best hour of my day, everyone. It says, P.S. Be nice to friends and family that work in IT. We are often missing sleep and working late nights to keep systems running and help get them back online. Hashtag be nice to nerds. So Levi, good on you. 14 plus hours each day of work on conference calls and the computer. Sounds like he's just going through some rugged stuff, but still somehow keeping his perspective, somehow getting in fitness. Okay, yep, this was the first one he got in this week, but you know what? Is that ideal? Absolutely not. And working 14 hours a day is not ideal. That's not sustainable. But when he got something back in. Remember, you're always just one workout or one meal away from getting right back on track. And if life is just kind of like this week that Levi's having, life is just socking you in the face this week, just get in what you can, right? The workouts don't need to be perfect. Scale it as much as you need to scale it. Modify it as much as you need to modify it. Don't run the clock if that's going to stress you out. Just move your body if you can, because there's just so much stress relief and value in that to help decompress after a crazy day. So that's that. Again, I hope everybody's enjoying their rest day. I know that I am. And I'm going to dive back onto the computer and keep programming the upcoming workouts. So thanks to the Linchpin community for being wonderful, and we'll talk again.